de Janeiro, the heart of Brazil and the heartbeat of football. A city alive with the beautiful game. Generations inspired by their idols, and few are more inspirational than the Flamengo legend, Arthur Antunes Coimbra. Zico.
Zico! Zico número 10!
Zico was the guy who made a difference in a game. One of the greatest joys I had in football was playing alongside Zico.
He was a genius, a brilliant player.
God, he's the most idolised player in Brazilian football since Pelé.
I can happily say that I gave my blood to Flamengo in my 20 years there, and I gave it with love, with pride and great honour.
Zico, a volta, o pé direito. Golaço sensacional de Zico.
Born in Rio de Janeiro on the 3rd of March 1953, Arthur Antunes Coimbra was the youngest of 5 brothers. He grew up here in the working-class neighbourhood of Quintinho, Bocaiúva, and it was on these streets where it all began.
I couldn't play with the kids who were my age. No one let me as I was too good. I was small and I was slightly weak, but in terms of football, I was just too strong.
The young Arthur also gained his first nickname. Known first as Arthurzinho and then Arthurzico, his cousin Erlinda suggested abbreviating the name to Zico. It stuck.
That one there's my aunt, there's a cousin, another cousin, and that's me being held there. And she was the one who gave me the name Zico, my cousin Erlinda. She was a huge Flamengo fan. And she called me Zico and asked my father to call me that too.
It was behind this door that Zico took his first steps towards stardom, playing for Juventude. Family friend Levi Gomez remembers how Zico and his brothers regularly joined forces on the futsal court.
They put together a team and they were unbeatable. No one came close to beating them, even more so when Zico was playing. They've been playing here since 1961 under the name of Juventude. Even when Zico was only 6, he would play for them. And I'm telling you, he could really play.
And it was playing indoor football or futsal where Zico was first spotted. In 1967, at the age of 13, he was set to join his brother Edu's club, America. Instead, he was offered a trial at the club he fanatically supported, Flamengo.
It was during a futsal tournament that someone from my neighbourhood spotted me. I scored a few goals and this guy obviously liked what he saw. And so he asked to come back to my house in order to ask my father's permission for me to go and have a trial at Flamengo.
Despite a successful trial, the club knew that Zico wasn't strong enough and made him follow a strict fitness regime to gain weight. It would take determination and dedication to ensure that he broke into the first team.
I'd arrived home exhausted. Basically a 6-month period where I barely went out. I couldn't even go out with girls and was effectively unable to do anything. Also, I could dedicate myself to the path in life I'd chosen, becoming a footballer.
He was extremely serious in everything he did, from the physical side to the technical side of his game. He pushed himself to the absolute limits, but that made life easier for everyone else. If you saw Zico going flat out, then you'd know you had to do the same.
His slight frame and endless running earned the young Zico another nickname too, the Rooster from Quintinho.
I was really skinny and I'd run about all over the pitch, and because I had big hair back then, it would stick up when I ran. And so everyone said I looked like a rooster.
Zico was surrounded by Brazilian legends at Flamengo, but they knew the Rooster was a legend in the making himself. Under Mario Zagallo in 1972, he started to make his mark.
Zico was already starting to show what he could do with the ball. And in the following year, he cemented his place in the first team. and he never looked back. Zico was a genius.
It was only a matter of time before his ability caught the eye of national team selectors.
He was already playing for Brazil in '76 and then played the World Cup in '78. But he had some problems in that tournament and ended up getting injured. He never had the best of luck in World Cups.
That World Cup started really badly, as in the first game we got a corner in the last minute. Nelinho took it and I scored. But the referee blew the final whistle when the ball was on its way into the net. And then the last memory is after we'd beaten Poland. There was that unforgettable game between Argentina and Peru. The sorest knocked out. No one really understands that 6-0 even today. Not the scoreline, just the way it happened. So that World Cup brings back some really painful memories.
Muito ruim para mim em termos daquela Copa do Mundo.
Despite Brazil's controversial exit, the experience in Argentina had been a learning curve. Back in Rio at Flamengo, a new generation of players had emerged. And in Zico, the side had its star. No one symbolised the dynamic new face of Brazilian football more than Flamengo's number 10. Clean living, dedicated and professional, he was an instant hit on the terraces. Indeed, his Flamengo career was characterised by the strong bond he shared with the fans. Even today, he is idolised at the Maracanã.
Tentativa de rebote, reclamaram uma mão, Zico!
I think it's because the fans saw me start out, grow up, and finish my career at Flamengo. It was the only Brazilian team I played for, and I played as if I was a supporter. So with that in mind, I think I gave more of myself on the pitch. And when Flamengo won, I tasted victory twice, as a player and then as a fan.
Flamengo are commonly regarded as the people's team in Rio. The fans have always identified with the players who show spirit and determination above all other qualities. Here, we make our own stars, reads the club's motto.
Each of us had our own history within the club. This really helped, as the fans understood that our hearts were red and black, and we all fought for the cause. Every player you'd see would be covered in sweat or blood.
Of the squad of 16 or so players, we had 12 who played for Brazil. We could have made up a national team just from Flamengo. I really believe that the best team I ever played in was that one.
We'd go to a game knowing that we'd win. We didn't know what the score would be, but we knew we'd win.
Their aim was simple, to become the best side in the world. Winning their first title in 1980 was a decisive step in that direction.
Our manager told us that if we wanted to become Libertadores and world champions, then we had to become Brazilian champions first, and so we went after that. We knew that each of us would have our names in the history books, if we could make that happen.
While Flamengo boasted an array of attacking talent, there was never any doubt who the real star of the show was. Zico had already become the heartbeat of both Flamengo and Brazil. He was the man who made the difference.
He was a great finisher. He knew exactly where the goal was and was superb at creating chances. I'd never seen anyone like that. Like I said, for us, he was the guy who would finish a game off. So when I played with Zico, it was like cooking. All I had to worry about was preparing the dinner, safe, in the knowledge that everything would come out fine in the end.
More than anything, though, he was becoming famous for his eye for goal from free kicks. From outside the area, Zico was simply deadly.
Whenever we got a free kick, everyone stopped to watch and wonder what was going to happen. And in the majority of cases, the ball would end up in the back of the net.
Zico's fame had reached new heights. Legendary samba musician Jorge Benjor even wrote a song celebrating his hero's trademark dead ball expertise.
It was his speciality. If the ball was inside the box, then it would be a goal. It was after a game against Fluminense that I wrote Flamengo's number 10. He scored 2 beautiful free kicks.
Yet he still had his doubters. The Sao Paulo press suggested he could only turn it on at Flamengo's home ground, the Maracanã. But no one has ever played more games or scored more goals in Brazil's legendary stadium.
The Sao Paulo press labelled me a Maracanã player, or someone who could only play in the Maracanã. As if this bothered me. To be labelled as the best player in the biggest stadium in the world, as far as I'm concerned, that was great. It's a real compliment and not a criticism.
What truly changed the national perception of Zico's ability was the World Club Cup in 1981. Flamengo travelled to Tokyo to face the European champions Liverpool. Inspired by Captain Zico, they secured their place in Brazil's football history. A 3-0 win had their illustrious opponents baffled.
The Liverpool manager even said, "What kind of football is that no one knows about?" He was surprised. He had no idea what had just happened. He couldn't understand the way Flamengo played, as if we were dancing, like a samba.
The samba football continued into 1982, but this time at the World Cup in Spain. Brazil hadn't won the tournament since 1970. Expectations for Zico's generation were inevitably high. Captained by Corinthians' elegant and outspoken playmaker Socrates, Brazil had the side to win it.
That team was put together over 3 years, and so we created our own sense of identity. We had a real collective strength and naturally thought we had something going on that was special and a little different. No doubt about it.
Brazil immediately justified their reputation as pre-tournament favourites with a brand of football that captured the purists' hearts. And it came as little surprise that Zico provided the cutting edge, as he so often did with Flamengo. Brazil's star player struck 3 times in the tournament's opening phase. He'd become the undisputable number 10 for both club and country. But next up were Brazil's eternal rivals, Argentina. And for Zico, it would be a clash against another number 10, a certain Diego Maradona.
I think Maradona was perhaps more skillful than Zico, but Zico was more effective. I'd rather have Zico in my team than Maradona.
Brazil proved too powerful for the Argentinians. Maradona's tournament ended in dismissal and disgrace, while Zico struck first to give the Brazilians a lead. He went on to set up his Flamengo teammate Junior as Brazil cruised to a 3-1 win. Italy were next. A draw would see Brazil safely through to the semi-finals. Surely little more than a formality, but Italy and their striker Paolo Rossi were about to change Brazilian football forever.
Cruzamento é perigoso. Gol de Paolo Rossi para a Itália. Zico com o Gentili, grande lance de Zico. Para Sócrates, invadiu, pintou, atenção, bateu. Torinho Cerezo. Na então Paulo Rossi fugiu, bateu. Gol da Itália. Cerezo passou para receber. Falcão limpou, vai bater, bateu. Gol! Bateu bem aberto. E o gol de Paulo Rossi. Gol de Paulo Rossi.
Do you want to know what went wrong? The fact is that on the 5th of July 1982, in the Sarria Stadium, Italy played better than Brazil. That's what went wrong. And the Brazilian team couldn't understand how the Italians were playing better.
I played in 3 World Cups, and that was the only game I ever lost. And I never got to play in a single World Cup final. 78, I didn't lose a game, same in 86. So that defeat in 82 was the only time I've lost a World Cup match. And even so, we never got to a final.
não conseguimos
That's
nem
football for you.
chegar a uma final. Então, essas são coisas que acontecem no futebol.
For Zico, it wasn't to be. He'd have to go through his entire career dubbed as a World Cup nearly man, his ability questioned as a result of never having captured football's biggest prize.
O Zico
So Zico never won a World
nunca
Cup?
venceu uma Copa do
Well,
Mundo.
that's the World Cup's bad luck.
Azar da Copa do Mundo.
Did Michel Platini or Johan Cruyff ever win a World Cup?
Johan Cruyff ganhou a Copa
And
do
are they any worse players because of that fact?
São menores porque não ganharam.
He was still #1 back in Rio. Flamengo were only too delighted to welcome him back. It wasn't the first or the last time that he'd sought refuge with his hometown club. And domestically, Flamengo showed no signs of letting up as they landed a third title in 1983.
The club welcomed him with open arms, and he knew Flamengo was there for him. We saw Flamengo as being like his national team anyway, with the energy he gave us. So he was fine with his life. Everything he did with Flamengo cancels out that disappointment with Brazil. It was just one day.
Still, the doubts persisted, however. How could someone who'd won so much at domestic level still be considered a World Cup failure?
He enjoyed a lot more success over the years with Flamengo than with Brazil, and with all the talent he had, he should have won the World Cup he deserved.
Yet as Zico celebrated that 1983 triumph with his beloved fans, trouble was brewing behind the scenes. A rift had developed between the player and the club. Against Zico's wishes, Flamengo decided to cash in and sell their star asset. The player was adamant that he never had any intention of leaving, but his hand was forced. The unthinkable had occurred. Zico would leave Flamengo, and the time had come to try his luck in Europe.
I think before all this happened, I would have liked to have stayed at Flamengo. And I did everything possible for that to happen.
Little-known Italian club Udinese had won the race to sign the world's best player. An Italian journalist likened the signing to installing the engine of a Ferrari in a Volkswagen. But why had he chosen to move to such a small club?
Because it was Udinese who came to Flamengo and bought me. The others didn't. So there's only an issue of choosing a side when you've got offers on the table.
He went to play for Udinese. And I'll tell you this, a side so small the population of Udine could fit inside the Maracanã.
Udinese's new hero wasted little time in settling in. In 1984, he was the second top scorer in Serie A with 19 goals. But his Italian adventure soon began to go wrong.
I managed to live up to what was expected of me. The only thing was I had one problem. Udinese had a young team, and we played really well in my first year there. But I got injured towards the end of the season, and we just missed out on the UEFA Cup spot. In the second year, the club president fell out with the manager, and so everything came off the rails.
A coisa degringolou e não funcionou mais.
Flamengo, now with a new board, were keen to offer their former star a lifeline. Zico wasted little time in rekindling his love affair with the club.
We knew that he'd left a seed here, and we're almost sure that he'd go over there and play, but that he'd be back one day. And that's what happened. He went, and then he came back.
Ele foi e voltou.
Again, there were critics suggesting he lacked the mental fortitude to succeed in Europe. In reality, Zico wanted to do what he loved most, score goals for his hometown club in his beloved Rio.
I wish every Brazilian player took the same stance as Zico. I want to see them all playing here and not in Europe. He was the king of Rio, hero at the club with the biggest fan base in the country. Why would he want to leave Brazil?
A return to Brazil also meant a return to the national team. Now in his early 30s, Zico's star showed no sign of fading, despite now being plagued by injury problems. A stunning hat-trick against Yugoslavia in 1986 proved he was ready for one last crack at World Cup glory in Mexico. Brazil had the same players as in '82, but they weren't the same force. their ageing stars were no longer expected to set the world alight.
In '86, things were different. Firstly, we didn't have the same preparation. Secondly, the supposedly great players in the team were all a bit past it. Me, Falcao, Zico, we were all getting on and injury-prone. Our age was beginning to tell.
Brazil began brightly and ensured themselves of a quarter-final tie against the European champions France. But Zico was struggling to overcome a knee injury and found himself in an unfamiliar position on the bench.
If I hadn't been the pro that I was, I probably wouldn't have even been playing in that World Cup. I simply wasn't fit enough. And I asked for them not to include me in the squad. But I was told by the Brazilian FA to sacrifice myself and battle against a knee injury that I had at the time.
Lutar contra o problema que eu tinha no joelho.
Allez Dominique, il faut entrer Dominique, on a
With the match locked at 1-1, Zico was once again introduced as the potential saviour, and he was greeted to a standing ovation. His impact was immediate. He set up Branco. The decision was a penalty, but who would take it?
You know, some people say that I should have taken it, but I wasn't going to take it. I'd only taken the one in our previous game because Zico wasn't playing.
Sometimes in a player's career, there's a defining moment for which he is forever remembered. This was Zico's, a chance to make amends for that defeat in 1982. It was a chance spurned, and one that still hasn't been forgotten.
I still get criticised even today, because in Brazil it seems that every World Cup where we don't win, there has to be a scapegoat. In 1950 it was Barbosa, in 82 Toninho Cerezo, in 78 it was Coutinho, and so in 86 it was me. Every time we don't win, people want to find someone to blame.
Brazil went on to lose in a penalty shootout. Socrates, one of two players to miss, as France sealed a famous win. Not that anyone remembers his miss.
Even today, most people remember the penalty that Zico missed. And no one remembers that I missed one. I've got no idea why that is, but he was the one who got all the blame.
Once again, the reaction from Flamengo was completely different. Another World Cup failure, but yet another warm welcome home in Rio. While his career was coming to an end, Zico found a new lease of life in nurturing a very talented young side.
The spirit is good. The squad's very young, but very talented. I look to give the youngsters here all of my experience that they'll need. It was a great team. We had 5 players who would go on to become world champions in '94. We had Jorginho, Aldair, Zinho, Bebeto and Leonardo.
We had some great players, with a true legend, Zico, at the forefront. He had a very important role in the side, and it was important for the rest of us to give something back to the Rooster in his last years.
Flamengo's number 10 inspired his teammates to title number 4 in 1987. Of all his many achievements, perhaps this one was his greatest.
I think for all of us who were starting out in our careers, myself, Ailton, Zinho and Zé Carlos, it was a great experience to have played alongside Zico.
But the Rooster was beginning to feel his age. His body couldn't cope, and the enthusiasm was no longer there. In 1989, at the age of 36, he felt he had no option but to retire.
I'd play 3 or 4 games and then pick up a muscular injury. And so this started to really get me down. And I lost all enjoyment in training, and when you lose the enjoyment, you can't go on.
The curtain had come down on a career that had witnessed 52 goals for Brazil and more than 500 for Flamengo. Despite a final fling in Japanese football and forays into management, it's at Flamengo that his memory will be most cherished. Zico himself considers the moment he first arrived there as the defining moment of a glittering 20 years at the top.
That was the most memorable day, as that's where it all began. My history in football started when I first trained with Flamengo. That's the moment for me. My story started there.